first, I want to just talk a little bit briefly about what is a VCO or a CO. A VCO, or Visual Chart Organizer, is in Financial Edge 7, the database view of the NXT platform. And a CO is a chart organizer in the Financial Edge NXT web view. And they're the same thing, a template to define the account groups or rows of financial statements. And for more information, if you're not familiar with building a VCO or a CO, you can watch Miles's audit tip number 1, where he walks through how to create an audit chart organizer to help with your audit process. And that link will be here in the presentation electronically when we send that out after today's webinar. So how do you advance filters in your CO mistake-proof your reporting? Well, using account attributes in FE7 or custom fields in FENXT to assign reporting categories directly to each account. Assigning these to each account code further automates this key reporting assignment. And once these are assigned and set up in your chart organizer, your accounts will automatically be added to the right rows of your reports based on those custom fields assigned. So what are the advantages to using advanced filters in your chart organizers? No need to update each chart organizer every time a new account is added. No need to worry about running out of numbers for your accounts to be grouped numerically for the various reporting categories. The numbers for your accounts are no longer the focus of your report filters, outside, of course, of the primary account categories. You can use multiple categories and assign those to the same account code or account number as needed. So you can create a separate field for each report audience, such as internal, board, and audit, or you can create one field to use for all three, adding the same field multiple times to the same record with 3 separate values. So how do you set up the reporting categories? Well, you create the account custom field. You populate the table, and then you add the custom field to each account code and account record. So in FENXT, you go to the control panel, select fields and tables, and then make sure that the custom fields tab is highlighted in blue. Then you're going to click the add button on that screen, and then a window will pop up to add your custom field. You're going to fill in the required fields and click save. So the field name, I chose reporting category just generically. And if you do that, you could put that same field repeatedly on the same record with a different value, or you could name that field according to the audience. So you might create 3 separate fields, one for internal reporting, one for board reporting, one for audit reporting. We want to make sure that it displays on the account record. And I recommend making this a required field to further help with the mistake proofing in the process. Just know that once you make the field required, you won't be able to save any changes to an existing account record until the field value has been populated. So you might want to wait until all the account codes and the accounts have been updated before making this field required. Then I always recommend using a table for the input type. And I always do a new table for the table name, and then I make that table name match my field name. That way, whenever I go into my tables, if I'm doing a table cleanup project, I'll know exactly which table goes with what field within the database. And then we can click save there at the end. Now, to populate the table, we can do this a couple different ways. Before saving the custom field, when we're first creating that, that field, you can click add value at the bottom of that window, and you can populate the table directly in that way. So you can just keep hitting add value and adding those descriptions, and then click save. Or you can, once you've created the custom field, you can then highlight the tables tab of your fields and tables screen in NXT, and then navigate to your particular table. So in this case, I just entered reporting in the search bar there, and it brought up my reporting category table. You just click on the table name, and then from there, we can populate the table by clicking add, and then adding our description and clicking save. So then we want to add that custom field to each account code and each account record. So we're going to go to General Ledger Settings and then select Account Codes. Then once we see the account codes here, we're going to go ahead and click the ellipse to the left of each account code and select Edit. We're going to click Add Custom Field. We're going to select the reporting category, and then we're going to select the value associated with that category. If you use a single field to list multiple times to establish different categories based on your audience, I recommend using the comment section of the custom field to indicate which audience uses the category. This will help you identify which chart organizer is using the particular value, and it will help to ensure that if you ever change the name of a category for a particular audience, that you change the right field on those records. So then we're going to add that custom field also to the account record by going to General Ledger Accounts, click on the account, and then we'll click Edit in the Custom Fields tile and select the value for the reporting category and click Save. If you made this a required field, the reporting category field will be present already, and you will just need to populate the value. If it's not a required field, then you will need to click Add or Add another custom field and select both the field and the value, and then click Save. And here again, you can add that comment as needed. It could also be helpful to add a date based on, if you want to keep track of when it was last updated. And then each time you make an update, if you do make any updates, you can just change the date so you know when that was last reviewed or updated. Alternatively, you can add these custom fields or attributes using the import tool in the database view of FE or in FE7 for both the account codes and the account records. If you elect to use the import tools, I do recommend that someone familiar with the tool do this work, either someone within your organization or a consultant with experience in this area. Attributes and custom fields are particularly squirrely and require care when adding or updating them to ensure that you don't accidentally duplicate the entries. So how do you use these custom fields in your chart organizers? You save your existing chart organizer as a new CO. And then at the detail level, you want to change your filter from range to using advanced filters. Then you can select your account custom field and include the reporting category corresponding to the row. So to save your existing CO as a new CO, you're going to navigate from the General Ledger menu to Chart Organizer, and then navigate to your template. So in this case, I'm going to use the Audit FY21 Chart Organizer template that Miles created in the last session. So then to save this as new, I'm going to click the ellipse to the left of the template ID and select copy into new. This will bring up a new window with the details intact, and I'm just going to assign a new template ID and a template description. Now, for the template ID, I just added the word new in front of, or I might add it at the end of the original template ID if I have enough characters to do so. And then for the description, I typically use the same description and put reporting category after it so that I know which is the new and why it's new as I go through this. And then we can clean up the templates after we've finished our project. So at the detail level now, we're going to change our filter from range to advanced filters by expanding the chart organizer to the highest level, revealing our account detail rows. And then we're going to click on that account detail row to select it. And on the right, it'll pop open that format account details window. At the bottom under choose accounts, we're going to change that include selected accounts from range to using advanced filters. And then in the filters area, we're going to click add a filter. That will open a new window, and we're going to change our filter by to account custom fields, and we're going to include selected. Then at the bottom of that new window, we're going to select our custom field type of, in this case, reporting category, or if we created those 3 separate fields, we might, for our purposes, choose the audit reporting field, since this is an audit CO that we're working with today. And then we're going to choose the value that corresponds to that detail row. So now the only account ranges that are material are those that are set for assets, liabilities, net assets, those primary configured ranges. And you can see that I now have in my, on the left, in my account detail, I'm looking at my category of cash and cash equivalents. The detail is for that category. And then on the right, we see under choose accounts for advanced filters that we have our account custom field, including reporting category, cash and cash equivalents. So all the way through, we're consistent in the way that we're naming the field values and the categories that we've established within our chart organizer. Now, once you've updated each CO, you can then go through your reports and change your chart organizer that's being used for each report to the new ones. After you've updated all of your reports to point to the new chart organizers, you can then uncheck the active box on each chart organizer that's old so that it can't be accidentally used. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, hi, Laura.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. I found it's very helpful already. So I'm kind of not a seasoned user for the Financial Edge and NXT. So if I understand correctly from the information have been presented, so to build a report, you have to should be starting from the chart organizer first to build the layout of your financial reports.
Yes.
Then from there, you can use the advanced filter to decide what GL codes to be included in that report. Then, on top of that, you can also use the customer field to properly flag, if you will, a GL account, like so to be put them on the right spot in that financial reports. So did I get the sequence right of the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is exactly right.
Perfect.
And in this way, I know often, controllers and CFOs want to arrange their accounts and group similar accounts together, particularly when you're talking about expenses, because those are usually the majority of your accounts, right? You have lots of expense accounts. And so you want to group them together. And so you have ranges of accounts, but often we don't allow enough space between those ranges, and over time we end up using all of those, and now all of a sudden we have this oddball account that's out in left field, if you will, in a different range because you ran out of numbers. And this way those ranges are not necessary in order to put together those reporting categories. This frees you from having to use those ranges. Or if you do run out of numbers in those ranges, you don't have to be concerned that it will impact your reports.
Okay, that's good to know, because for our organization, our financial reports presented to the board is a customized report. So does not fall into the standard out of box report, because we actually list disbursement. Traditionally, will be listed under expense as a subcategory of the revenue. So we present the net revenue after disbursement in the revenue section.
Okay.
So in order to do that, we are not actually using Financial Edge right now to populate that report. We do a lot of manual work after we export the data. So I'm wondering, so do you think it's possible by using the customer field and the chart organizer, if we do that right in a right way, would we be able to create that customized report within Financial Edge?
There is a way. So I've worked with a lot of foundations, having come from a community foundation before I started consulting. And a lot of foundations have funds held for others that are actually a liability on their books, not even though they fall into the net asset category, they're a liability because they're not funds that they own, right? They're owned by other agencies. And so they need to be able to take those net assets and report them under liabilities. And there is a way to do that in a chart organizer.
Okay, good to know. Okay, so that's great. And I don't want to take a lot of time, so maybe I'll have questions after.
Sure. And so I know, some folks, let's see, hang on, there's a question here. So trying to find a report that would show activity in an account with a column included that shows what was entered in the Treasury credit card register reference field. Include the field in our account summary reports. So the account custom fields, I'd have to think about that, because typically the account custom fields that we're talking about here are really used to help create the rows that are generated through that chart organizer. So the chart organizer creates the rows within your report. And then within the report itself, you have the columns. That's where you're creating those columns in your reports. And there are filters for those columns depending on the report it is that you're using specifically. So I would have to look at that, Jay, a little bit closer to see specifically, how we can add that data to be able to use as a filter for those columns. Sorry, that isn't a more definitive answer, but it definitely is something that is possible, I think, but we would need to really take a closer look to see specifically what needs to be done.